Greetings, everyone. This is part 2 of Marquee TV interview with AllenMeadows. We just tasted a couple of wines, the Olivier Merlin Macon and the Denis Bachelet Bourgogne. But we're going to talk about a little bit about the personalities in Burgundy, and there's no lack of them.
No,
from,
clearly not.
You know, the egotistical to, you know, the funny guy that, like, say, Philippe Paquelet, who's the mad scientist who makes unbelievably good wines.
Certainly does.
To one of my friends, and I like American Alex Gamble. He's really improved over the last 10 or 12 years.
I think he has,
Yeah.
enormously. The reason, John, that I think he has improved so much, because when you look at his wines, and while he has slowly built up
Yep.
a domain, when he first started, he was buying fruit.
Yes.
And people are typically selling fruit that isn't necessarily top level, because if it was top level, they'd keep it for themselves.
Correct.
And so I asked him one time, I said, Alex, your wines are clearly getting better. What do you attribute that to? And it was a very, very interesting response, which is, I pay my bills. Meaning that people want to sell to him because they're sure that he's going to meet the obligations. And so he told me,
Yeah.
he says that I am now moving up the quality chain in terms of people who are willing to sell to me. Because it isn't necessarily the case that just because you're willing to pay top dollar that people will renege on verbal contracts that they've had for a long time with other growers. So he says, I'm moving up the food chain.
Yep.
And I've moved up the food chain by being here, demonstrating that I'm serious, paying my bills,
Yep.
and making good wine.
Well, you know, in a small region like Burgundy, if you can't live by your word,
Everybody
done.
knows it.
in about what, a minute and a half.
Doesn't take long.
It doesn't take long. I first met Alex at Le Fawn. He was hoeing some vine, you know, some weeds or in the vineyard, and we kept in communication. I think it was in like the early '90s. Anyway, we kept in communication. It was about 5 years ago. I started to go back to him, but one of the most fascinating and telltale signs that he told me where he learned to make wine is not in school, but after he moved his family to Burgundy. The Burgundians recognized that he was serious. He moved his wife and 2 small kids.
Yep.
He said, I learned to make wine on the soccer field. I learned to make wine in the PTA meetings. I learned to make wine in the coffee shops. Because now he's part of the community.
Exactly.
And they're telling him the little secrets that they don't have in the books. And that's so important. I get asked all the time about, you know, where do you put BC wines in this? And I said, look, in the 25 years I've been in the business, BC's come a long way, but here's the story. I was in Bordeaux, tasting at Léoville-Lascasse. Pulled out of my BlackBerry picture 45 Léoville that I had, and I showed the winemaker. A big smile came on his face, and he said to me in French, my grandfather's second vintage. So we've got 3 generations making wine at Léoville-Lascasse. What do you think they're making it? What do you think they're talking about at the dinner table? Vineyards.
Yeah.
And so this guy, probably got the worst French accent ever. And like, he's awful.
Even Alex would admit.
Yeah, he
it's,
admits it, but
it's
that's
not
his
great.
charm, man. That's
Yeah.
his charm. We all love him, and he's a great guy, and he's one of the great personalities of for me of Burgundy. Who else is like it sticks out and larger than life and does some neat stuff?
French, American.
Anybody, doesn't matter.
Well, there's a fellow by the name of Blair Pethel, who is a bit like me. He, in the sense that he had another profession first,
Right.
and then decided to completely get out of anything related to what he was doing. He was a political journalist, and had worked in DC for a long time. Went to London,
Yeah.
married a gal there, and they started going to Burgundy. This fellow's name is, if I didn't say it already, it's Blair Pethel.
Okay.
And he became intrigued. He moved his family there, and little by little he was looking for a small place to buy, and a bit like Alex,
Yeah.
he started buying fruit. He's in the process now. He's acquired a vineyard here, a vineyard there, but he's starting at the bottom. And I've asked him, as many people have, but since I spent a lot of time there, I said, how have the Burgundians accepted you? And he said, they accepted me as soon as they started to see me on my track.
Yep.
Because it's me, not a hired vigneron that's doing the hard lifting. He said, they see me out there doing the trellising. They see me out there doing the pruning. And to the Burgundian, that is a dedication that says, I'm here to stay, I'm serious. And he said at that point, they started to help me, give me tips, lend me equipment, say, you know, don't buy that one, this is a much better model now.
Wow.
Just all kinds of tips.
Wow, wow! It's, you know, dedicated to the art, and,
Right.
and wow, I've never. Where is he? I've never heard of him.
He is right on the edge of where Savigny and Beaune come together. Do you know where the BMW dealership is?
Yes, I do.
Yes, well, he's about 100 yards from there.
He's from there. Okay, very, very cool. Very cool. Probably look him up next time I'm there. Then.
You should.
Yeah, I'm always looking for
His
new
wines
people.
are also,
Are they good?
they're very elegant. In fact, they're sort of Denis Bachelet-like.
Okay.
In that it's a definite emphasis on finesse. There's not extraction to it.
Okay.
In fact, the wines can seem, at first blush,
Right.
a little light, but they are actually pinpoint in their purity and transparency.
Okay.
And so it's all about elegance and finesse.
Very cool. Burgundy, as you know, you go to Beaune and you go to the surrounding villages of Neuilly or say Savigny, and kind of looks like a lack of a better term, a sleepy little town. But there's not. There's a lot going on, a lot of history, a lot of good restaurants. You can occupy your day just, you know, going from maybe a little antique shop to another store to the Abbey de Citeaux, getting some big wheel of cheese, trying to sneak it across through customs, which I think you'll have every hound in the airport after you, but it'll be worth it if you get it through. There's a ton of stuff to do. When you have free time, what do you do there?
I typically go walking in the vineyards.
In the vineyards.
Because I find that to, not to be overly zen about the whole thing,
Yeah.
but I actually find that to be spiritual.
Okay.
In that, you know, you go and you try and see what monks 1,000 years ago might have seen here to convince them to try planting vines there. And to understand Burgundy is to understand the land.
Yes.
And but one of the mysteries, for example, I don't know how many times, probably 30, maybe more, that I've walked in Montrachet.
Yep.
I've yet to figure out what makes that piece of dirt special, but the wines are unbelievable. But to go and look at this piece of dirt, you say to yourself, how anyone originally said this should be good, you can't see it.
Yeah. No. You know, you drive by, you see, you know, Le Montrachet, Marquis de Guiche takes a big chunk of it. You're right. You go, wait, I've just driven by here. Well, what's made? Why is this here? And this is Betard, and this is Corset. Why is this Montrachet, and why is this not? But they figured it out
They did.
somehow.
It was literally, at that time, prospecting
Yeah.
for vinous gold and then delimiting it in a way that was coherent, meaning that the wines that came from here were like one another, but as soon as you extended it to here, the wine had changed, so they said, well, that's not the place to draw the boundary, so they drew it here rather than there, and this became part of another vineyard, and they kept mapping, and you have to remember that the monks were the educated class at the time.
Right.
They took meticulous records, and also they had a use for their mistakes, because they could use the wines that they made in the various rituals,
Right.
and so they had a use for it, and the wines that were great made the reputation of Burgundy and became a sort of political currency for the Dukes of Burgundy.
Okay.
In fact, one of the big consumers of the wines of Burgundy, in particular Clos Vougeot, was the Pope.
Right. Yeah.
He knew good wine when he tasted it, and that's how Burgundy became mapped out. But it was listening for the sounds of the earth, and they drew the lines where the signals were the strongest. It is foreign to our modern day sensibilities, but that's the way it actually
But they
happened.
did it with this, and this. No, that was their technology.
Yeah, exactly.
Over hundreds of years. It doesn't happen over 10 or 20.
Right.
It's hundreds of years.
Can you do that again? This, and this. I wasn't on you.
Slowly.
Oh, you want me to repeat?
Repeat, please.
Okay. They did it through this, and this, and not through the technology that we have today. Because that's all they had.
Yep.
So it worked out for them. God, there's so much. What else? There's so much more to say about Burgundy. It was
So,
just-
what about a person that wants to learn, doesn't
About
know
Burgundy?
anything, loves wine, wants to learn about Burgundy?
What's the Japanese expression, kaizen? He's putting on the boots and going there. Just, putting on the shoes, make the appointments and go there. There's this misconception that the French are unfriendly and Burgundy's unfriendly. If you go knock on the door in the middle of the afternoon, you may have a problem. But if you follow protocol, because it's a very structured society,
It is.
send them a letter. Yes, you can send them an email. Send them a letter. Tell them who you are, wine lover, wine educator, wine consumer, you want to learn more. You're coming to Burgundy for the first time. Is it possible to come for an appointment? You're going to get a letter back, and they're going to love to see you.
And you should mention that you're a client. In other words, you've tasted the wine,
Right.
you admire the wine, you would like to see the land and the people that made it, and can you come and learn?
Yeah.
And the Burgundians are no different than anyone else. They enjoy being admired in terms of what they do,
Yeah.
and they're happy to show you, for the most part. You may not always get into the Domaine del Romani Conti because they get so many requests,
Right.
but at the same time, the average grower is absolutely welcoming, and
I love
Their
it.
attitudes.
They're great. And, I mean, if you're worried about the language, because of the younger generation taking over, they mostly speak English now. There's no problem getting around. 25 years ago, at least for me, because my French is not very good, it was a bit of an issue, but I managed to stumble along. Alan speaks French, so it's easy. But today, it's not a problem. It's a great place to go, and highly recommend it if you want a great little holiday.
But not only in terms of why it's great fun to go, but perhaps more than any other wine region, at least that I have personally visited, you can't begin to imagine the scale by looking at photos in a book. It
No.
is so small, and the only way to really gain an appreciation for how microscopic these vineyards are and the parcels within these microscopic vineyards that these guys work with is to go and look. For those of you that may have visited Napa Valley, think 1/3 of the Napa Valley, and that's Burgundy.
You can see it in, not that you're going to see it, but you can see it in a much shorter period of time. Not necessarily know it, because that's a different cup of tea. But you can see it in a little bit shorter period of time, and have a good idea. And what it does is it piques your interest for wanting to go back for more. So on that note, Alan, do you have any other, quims, whims? Oh, when are you going to Burgundy again?
I go next month.
Next month, yeah.
So
Plus you're going to be there at the same time.
that's right.
Exactly. So
Have to hook up for a dinner.
I think so.
Where will you go?
That's a good question. I mean, we'll go to l'hotel.
Well, that's a great place.
They have a great
Yeah,
list,
yeah,
and
yeah.
the food is excellent. So
Great. If you have any questions on Burgundy, you know who to call. Give me a shout. Email me. Come in the store. I'd love to see you. And thanks for listening. Cheers.